Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about a divine principle that many of us have experienced, yet few understand in its entirety. The principle of isolation. You see, before God blesses you, He often isolates you. And many of us wonder, why does it seem like I'm alone in my struggles, away from the crowd, distant from what I thought I was meant to have? But I want to share with you today that God's isolation is not abandonment, it's preparation for a greater blessing. You see, when God isolates you, He is not punishing you. Isolation is a moment of divine preparation. It's not just about being physically alone. It's about being mentally, emotionally, and spiritually set apart. It's a time to work on the most important thing, your inner self. When everyone else is busy with their own lives, God removes all distractions to get your attention. He wants you to focus on the most important thing, your purpose. In isolation, you learn things about yourself that you would never learn in the noise of the world. It's in this quiet space that you come face to face with your own weaknesses and limitations, but also with your greatest potential. God isolates you so that you can discover the true essence of who you are, what He's called you to do, and what He's called you to become. It's in this moment that you realize that the greatness He has for you is not in the crowd, but in the quiet moments of self-reflection and growth. But here's where it gets even more powerful. During times of isolation, God strengthens your faith. The truth is, faith cannot be built in the comfort of abundance. You can't grow your trust in God when everything is easy, when there are no challenges, no problems. Isolation is the furnace where your faith is refined, where you learn to rely solely on Him. There are no more crutches, no more people to lean on, just you and God. And that's where real transformation happens. One of the most important things God does during isolation is break your dependency on the wrong things. People, comfort, material possessions, they can all become crutches. But God wants you to stand on His word and His promises alone. When He isolates you, He is teaching you how to depend entirely on Him, how to trust in His provision, and how to live out His will for your life. The process of isolation is also about personal growth and maturity. It's not comfortable. It's not easy. But in the silence, you are being shaped. Your character is being tested. Your resilience is being developed. You are becoming the person who can handle the blessing that is coming your way. The greatest blessings God has in store for you will require a level of maturity and responsibility that only isolation can bring. God knows the timing of your blessings. While we may feel impatient, He knows exactly when we are ready to step into our next season. Isolation is not permanent, but it is necessary. You see, it's not just about receiving blessings. It's about being prepared to manage those blessings wisely. If you were given everything you wanted too soon, you might not be able to handle it. God is a wise steward of blessings, and He knows that in your isolation, you are being prepared for something greater than you could imagine. When you come out of this period of isolation, you will be stronger, wiser, and more equipped for the responsibilities and opportunities that lie ahead. The reward of isolation is not the loneliness, but the transformation that occurs within you. You will be ready not just to receive the blessings, but to walk in them with purpose, humility, and grace. So if you find yourself in a season of isolation, don't despair. Embrace it. Trust that God is preparing you for something amazing. The blessings He has for you are coming, and you will be ready to receive them. The process is difficult, but the reward is greater than you can imagine. God isolates before He blesses because He's preparing you to handle the fullness of His promises. Embrace the isolation. It's not the end, but the beginning of something extraordinary. Isolation serves a significant purpose in God's plan for your life, especially when it comes to preparing you for the blessings that are to come. In our fast-paced, crowded world, it can often feel like being isolated is a form of punishment or abandonment. However, isolation is not about being abandoned by God, but about being separated from the distractions and influences that can prevent you from fully understanding His will for your life. When you're isolated, you are in a unique position to hear God more clearly, to focus on what He's saying, and to deepen your relationship with Him without the interference of external noise or pressure. Isolation provides an opportunity for self-examination, where you can honestly confront your fears, doubts, and insecurities. It's during these moments of solitude that God works on refining your character and revealing parts of yourself that need attention. Whether it's overcoming past hurts, addressing emotional baggage, or letting go of toxic behaviors, isolation is a time to get rid of the things that will weigh you down when the blessings come. It allows you to focus on internal healing and growth so that when you step into your destiny, you're ready to handle it with wisdom and strength. Isolation teaches you reliance on God. In the absence of the people and comforts you may have relied on, you learn to trust that God is enough. You become aware of His presence in a deeper, more personal way. You may not always have immediate answers or solutions, but you learn to wait on Him, to pray with intention, and to seek His guidance. This process of relying solely on God cultivates a stronger, more intimate faith, one that is not dependent on circumstances but grounded in His unchanging nature. Through isolation, God prepares you for what's ahead, molding your character, refining your faith, and aligning your heart with His purpose. It's a necessary part of the journey that may feel lonely at times, but it's always purposeful. Far from being an abandonment, it's a divine invitation to step into a season of deep preparation that will lead to greater blessings, greater responsibility, and a closer relationship with the one who holds your future. When God isolates you, it's often a deliberate and strategic step in preparing you for the destiny He has designed for your life. We all have a purpose, a calling that is uniquely ours, but before we step fully into that purpose, there are aspects of our lives that need to be refined, shaped, and strengthened. Destiny is not just about the arrival at a destination, it's about the journey of becoming the person who can handle the weight and responsibility of that calling. In this process, isolation becomes a crucial time of preparation. During seasons of isolation, God works on your inner being, your character, your integrity, and your spiritual maturity. You may be ready for the external blessings, but the internal preparation is equally important. You cannot walk into your divine calling until you are equipped to carry the weight of it. This preparation often involves moments of discomfort, challenge, and reflection. God allows you to face trials not to punish you, but to build endurance and resilience. These trials are meant to make you stronger, more capable of handling the challenges that will come with fulfilling your destiny. Isolation also creates a space where God can align your heart and desires with His perfect will. The world, with all its distractions and temptations, often leads us away from our true calling. In isolation, God removes the noise and allows you to focus on His voice and His vision for your life. It is in this space that your purpose becomes clearer, that you begin to see how all the pieces of your life fit together in His plan. The skills, experiences, and talents you've accumulated over time are refined and directed toward your ultimate purpose, making you better prepared to step into the role God has set for you. Isolation provides a time to prepare emotionally, mentally, and spiritually for the weight of the responsibilities that will come with fulfilling your destiny. Destiny requires leadership, influence, and a certain level of maturity. It demands that you be prepared not only to receive blessings, but to handle them with grace and responsibility. This time of being set apart allows God to develop the kind of heart that will manage blessings without pride, humility without fear, and influence without arrogance. While isolation may seem like a pause, it is in fact a pivotal moment in your preparation for destiny. It's a time when God is aligning you with His plan and making sure that when the right opportunities and blessings come, you will be ready not just in talent or ability, but in character and wisdom. Every season of isolation is an investment in your future, an intentional step to ensure that when your destiny is realized, you will be ready to fulfill it in the way God has always intended. Self-discovery is one of the most profound and transformative aspects of the isolation process. When you are removed from the external pressures of society, relationships, and daily distractions, you are forced to confront your true self. In the quiet of solitude, the mask that we often wear for others begins to fade, and we become more aware of who we truly are, our deepest thoughts, desires, fears, strengths, and weaknesses. This period of introspection is critical, because it allows you to understand not just who you are, but also who you are meant to become. In isolation, God often reveals parts of your character that may have been hidden or buried under layers of external influences. the way you react to stress, the things that trigger your insecurities, and even your hidden potential. All of these come to light in moments of stillness. Without the distractions of daily life, you gain clarity on areas where you need healing or growth, areas where your beliefs may be flawed or your actions misaligned with your true values. Through this process, God shows you where you need to change, and this discovery is essential for your personal and spiritual development. Isolation can also be a time for uncovering untapped strengths and abilities. You may discover that you possess resilience and courage that you never realized were there. You may uncover creative talents or leadership qualities that had been dormant within you. Self-discovery is not just about recognizing weaknesses, it's about unlocking the full potential of who you are. In these moments of solitude, you can tap into parts of your soul that you didn't know existed. It's during this time that you understand that your experiences, your challenges, and your life story have shaped you for greatness. Another aspect of self-discovery is the ability to distinguish your true desires from the influence of others. When you're constantly surrounded by voices telling you who you should be or what you should want, it becomes difficult to hear your own inner voice. In isolation, the noise fades, and you can start to hear the whisper of your own heart, the desires that align with your purpose and calling. You begin to discern what is truly important to you, not what society expects or what others think is best, but what resonates with your authentic self and your divine purpose. This clarity is essential in understanding your path and staying true to it when external pressures try to lead you astray. Self-discovery in isolation is a sacred time of learning to love and accept yourself for who you truly are, with all your imperfections and strengths. It's about understanding your value, not based on what you do or what you have, but based on who God created you to be. This period of self-discovery equips you with the confidence and understanding necessary to walk into your purpose. By knowing yourself fully, your strengths, weaknesses, passions, and fears, you are better prepared to step into your destiny with authenticity and purpose. Strengthening faith is one of the most significant outcomes of isolation, as it provides a unique environment for trust in God to be tested and deepened. When everything around you is uncertain, when external support systems are unavailable, and when you face challenges that seem insurmountable, you are forced to rely on the one constant in your life, God. In these moments, faith is not just a belief, but a lifeline. It is during times of isolation that you learn to lean on God more fully, trusting that He will provide, protect, and guide you through each trial. During isolation, God allows you to face situations where you cannot solve problems on your own or control the outcome. This is where true faith begins to take root. When you are isolated from the familiar comforts of people and worldly sources of security, you discover the depth of your dependency on God's power and His timing. In moments when you don't have the answers, when the road ahead seems unclear, you are forced to trust not in your own ability, but in God's divine plan. This is where your faith grows, when you are stripped of everything else. And all that remains is the assurance that God is with you, working behind the scenes for your good. Isolation strengthens your faith because it teaches you patience and perseverance. In a world that often seeks instant results, waiting on God can feel uncomfortable, even painful. Yet isolation forces you to be still, to wait, and to trust in God's perfect timing. During this waiting period, your faith is stretched. It's easy to believe when everything is going well. But true faith is developed in the moments when you are waiting, unsure of what comes next. God uses these moments to refine you, to build endurance and resilience in your spirit, and to teach you that His timing is always perfect, even when it feels like nothing is happening. Another way that isolation strengthens faith is through deepening your relationship with God. When you are isolated, you are often more focused on prayer, on seeking His guidance, and on listening for His voice. The absence of distractions means you can hear God more clearly. It is in this space of quiet surrender that you experience His presence more profoundly. The more you spend time in His presence, the more your trust in Him grows. You begin to see that He is not distant or silent. He is right there, guiding you, loving you, and revealing His plans for your life. In isolation, you also gain a greater understanding of God's faithfulness. As you look back on past struggles, you can see how He carried you through difficult times. This reflection on God's past faithfulness builds your confidence in His ability to handle future challenges. Each time God shows up in a way that confirms his promises, your faith is strengthened. You realize that God has never failed you, and he never will. Isolation strengthens your faith by clarifying your purpose. As you grow in your relationship with God, you come to understand more clearly what he has called you to do and why it's so important. When you begin to see the bigger picture, how your life fits into his grand design, your faith grows deeper. You trust that the trials and isolation are part of a larger plan, and you can rest in the assurance that God is using every moment to prepare you for something greater. In these times of solitude, when the external world falls away, God strengthens your faith, teaching you to rely on his strength rather than your own, and to trust that his plan is always better than anything you could create on your own. Breaking dependencies is one of the most transformative aspects of the isolation process, as it allows God to strip away anything that prevents you from fully relying on him. In our daily lives, we often develop dependencies on people, circumstances, or material things to feel secure, validated, or fulfilled. These dependencies, whether conscious or unconscious, can become crutches that hinder us from stepping into the fullness of our potential and the purpose God has for us. Isolation is a divine tool that forces you to confront these attachments, urging you to break free from anything that stands between you and your complete reliance on God. When you're isolated, the things you once leaned on for comfort and affirmation, whether relationships, social approval, or financial security, are often removed or diminished. In the absence of these external sources of strength, you are left with one option: to trust God. This can be uncomfortable at first because it challenges your sense of control and security. But it is precisely in this discomfort that God begins to teach you how to depend on him alone. You learn that your true security, identity, and peace do not come from the external world, but from your relationship with him. This is a crucial lesson, as God desires to be your sole source of strength and provision. Breaking these dependencies can also reveal the unhealthy attachments you formed. Over time, we can become overly reliant on people, friends, family, or even mentors, to the point where we begin to look to them for guidance, validation, or direction instead of seeking God's voice. Isolation creates a space to reassess these relationships, removing the subtle ways in which we may have placed others on pedestals or relied on them more than on God. This doesn't mean that relationships are no longer important, but it does mean that your reliance on others must be balanced by an unwavering dependence on God. In isolation, God removes these crutches so that you can learn to walk by faith alone, trusting that he is the ultimate source of wisdom, strength, and guidance. Isolation allows you to break free from dependencies on material things and worldly comforts. In times of abundance, it's easy to rely on wealth, possessions, or status for security and happiness. However, these things are temporary and ultimately cannot satisfy the deepest needs of the soul. When you are isolated, you may face a lack of material resources, forcing you to depend entirely on God's provision. This experience strengthens your faith, teaching you that he will provide exactly what you need when you need it. In these moments, you learn to live with contentment, trusting that God's provision is sufficient and that he is more than enough. The process of breaking dependencies also involves letting go of past patterns of thinking and behaving that have kept you stuck. Some dependencies are emotional, tied to unresolved wounds or past hurts. When you are isolated, God often leads you through a process of healing, helping you to release old emotional ties and toxic thought patterns that prevent you from stepping into your destiny. As these layers are peeled away, you find greater freedom to live in alignment with your true self and your divine calling. You begin to discover that you no longer need to hold on to the past or the comfort of familiar but unhelpful ways of thinking and being. Breaking dependencies and isolation empowers you to build a deeper, more authentic relationship with God. When all other sources of comfort and security are removed, you realize that he is the one who has always been there for you, even when you didn't recognize it. You come to understand that he is the only one you truly need, and that all the blessings and fulfillment you seek are found in him. This process of breaking dependencies is not about rejecting the people or things you love, but about placing God in his rightful position as your ultimate source of strength, provision, and guidance. It frees you to walk more confidently in your purpose, knowing that you are not bound by the limitations of the world, but empowered by God's presence and His promises. Personal growth and maturity are central to the process of isolation, as this season provides an opportunity for deep inner transformation. When you are isolated, away from the noise and distractions of the world, you are forced to confront parts of yourself that you may have overlooked or avoided in the past. It is in these quiet moments that God works on your heart, mind, and soul, shaping you into a more resilient, wise, and emotionally mature individual. This process of growth often takes time and requires patience, but it is essential for the development of the character and wisdom needed to step into the blessings that God has prepared for you. In isolation, God is not just refining your skills or talents, but is focusing on your character. He is addressing areas in your life where immaturity, impatience, or insecurity may have taken root. Without the pressures of external expectations, you are given the space to reflect on your responses to various situations, how you handle challenges, how you interact with others, and how you deal with your emotions. As you learn to process these moments on a deeper level, you become more self-aware, recognizing both the strengths that need to be nurtured and the weaknesses that need to be healed. This heightened self-awareness leads to greater emotional intelligence, allowing you to navigate relationships and challenges with greater wisdom. Maturity doesn't just involve emotional growth, but spiritual growth as well. In isolation, your relationship with God is often strengthened because you are compelled to seek Him more earnestly. As you pray, read scripture, and reflect on His promises, your understanding of His nature and your place in His plan deepens. You begin to see that maturity is not simply about knowing more, it is about applying wisdom in every area of your life. This spiritual maturity equips you to handle the responsibilities and challenges that come with your purpose. You learn to trust God's timing, to surrender your will to His, and to walk in faith even when you cannot see the full picture. Personal growth also comes through the development of resilience and perseverance. Isolation often brings difficulties, challenges that test your strength and endurance. During these times, you learn how to press forward, even when things are hard. You develop a deeper sense of persistence, knowing that growth often requires going through trials. You begin to realize that setbacks are not failures, but opportunities to build strength and resilience. Each time you face a challenge and continue to trust in God, you grow stronger, more capable, and more prepared for the greater purpose He has for you. Another crucial aspect of growth in isolation is learning to embrace discomfort. Maturity is not always about comfort, it is about the ability to remain steady and faithful in the midst of hardship. Isolation is often uncomfortable physically, emotionally, or mentally, but it is during these moments of discomfort that God cultivates the resilience necessary for your journey. You learn to rely on His grace to carry you through difficult seasons, knowing that He is using every moment of discomfort to mold you into someone who can handle greater responsibility and blessing. As you grow, you also begin to develop the kind of wisdom that comes from experience. The isolation process allows you to reflect on your past, not just the good, but the struggles, failures, and lessons learned along the way. You begin to see how all the different pieces of your life fit together, how the trials were necessary for your growth, and how God has been with you every step of the way. This perspective gives you a sense of gratitude for both the highs and lows of your journey, allowing you to move forward with confidence and grace. Through isolation, you are not just waiting for your blessings to come, you are becoming the person who can manage those blessings with wisdom, integrity, and humility. The growth and maturity you experience during this time are the foundation for the life you are about to step into. When you emerge from isolation, you are not the same person who entered. You have been shaped, tested, and prepared for something greater. The person you are becoming is one who is ready to handle the blessings, opportunities, and responsibilities that God has in store for you. Focusing on purpose during times of isolation allows you to engage in the deep, reflective work needed to understand why you were created and what you are meant to do with your life. In a world that is constantly pulling us in various directions, it can be difficult to discern the voice of God amidst the noise. But in isolation, the distractions fade away, and you are given a rare opportunity to hear God's calling clearly and to focus intently on the path He has set before you. This season becomes a sacred space for aligning your heart with His divine purpose and understanding how every part of your life fits into His grand plan. In isolation, God often reveals to you the deeper truths about your calling, what you are uniquely equipped to do, and the impact you are meant to have. It is a time to assess the desires and passions within you, those things that stir your soul and align with God's vision for your life. You begin to realize that your purpose is not just about what you do, but about who you become in the process. The work that God is doing within you during this time is just as important as the work you will do in the world. He is shaping you to be the person who can fully embrace and walk in your purpose with confidence and integrity. The focus on purpose also brings clarity about the things that truly matter. In isolation, you begin to shed the weight of things that are distractions or unnecessary. The ambitions and pursuits that once seemed so important lose their hold, and you find yourself drawn to what is eternal, the calling God has placed on your life. It is in this space of reflection that you are able to recognize what is truly important, living a life aligned with God's will, serving others, and fulfilling the unique role He has created you to play in the world. Your purpose becomes a guiding light, helping you to navigate the complexities of life and to prioritize what truly brings fulfillment. As you focus on purpose, God also brings a greater sense of vision. This time of isolation helps you see the bigger picture, how your life fits into the larger narrative of His kingdom, and how every experience, every relationship, and every challenge you face serves to prepare you for what is ahead. You begin to understand that your purpose is not a single event or moment, but a journey, a series of steps that unfold over time. Each decision, each experience is part of the process of becoming who God intended you to be. This perspective brings peace and confidence, knowing that you are not aimlessly wandering, but walking a path that has been carefully planned out for you. Focusing on purpose during isolation also requires a deeper level of surrender. You may have your own ideas of what you want your life to look like, but God's purpose often involves letting go of your own plans and trusting in His greater vision. In this season, God invites you to release control and trust that His purpose for your life is far greater than anything you could have imagined on your own. This surrender is not about giving up, but about embracing God's plan with open hands, knowing that He is shaping you for something far more significant than what you could achieve on your own. During isolation, you also discover the significance of preparation. Your purpose may be clear, but the process of walking into it requires preparation. This time of focus allows you to develop the skills, knowledge, and character necessary to fulfill your purpose. God prepares you for the work ahead, shaping your heart and mind to handle the responsibilities and challenges that come with living out your calling. Isolation becomes a time of refinement as you grow in wisdom, maturity, and spiritual depth, ensuring that when the time comes, you are ready to step into your purpose with confidence and grace. As you emerge from isolation, you do so with a clear sense of direction and purpose. You have spent the time aligning your heart with God's will, shedding distractions, and preparing to walk boldly into the life He has planned for you. With a renewed sense of clarity, you are ready to embrace the opportunities and challenges that come with living out your purpose. The isolation that once seemed difficult now becomes a precious and invaluable season of growth, refining and focus, one that sets the stage for the fulfillment of God's calling on your life. The testing of character is one of the most profound and necessary aspects of isolation, as it is during this time that God reveals the true state of your heart and refines your inner being. In the absence of external influences and distractions, you are left alone with yourself, your thoughts, emotions, desires, and reactions. This can be an uncomfortable process, as it forces you to confront areas of your character that may need growth, healing, or transformation. However, this testing is not meant to break you. Rather, it is designed to build you into the person God has called you to be, someone who is prepared to handle the blessings, challenges, and responsibilities that come with fulfilling your purpose. During seasons of isolation, God tests your integrity, how you respond when no one is watching. It is easy to maintain a facade of goodness and righteousness when surrounded by others, but true character is revealed in solitude. In these moments, you learn whether your principles are firmly rooted in God's truth or if they are merely a product of external validation. You are challenged to live out your values not for the approval of others, but because you have internalized them as a reflection of who you are in Christ. This testing reveals areas where your integrity needs strengthening, where your actions may not align with your beliefs, and where you need to grow in becoming more like Christ. The testing of character also brings to light your patience, endurance, and ability to persevere. In isolation, you may face long seasons of waiting, where things seem stagnant or uncertain. During these times, you discover how easily you become frustrated, discouraged, or restless. God uses these moments to teach you the value of patience, learning to trust His timing and to wait with grace, knowing that He is working behind the scenes. The ability to endure hardship without losing faith or hope is an essential part of developing a mature character, and isolation provides the opportunity to build this resilience. Another critical area of character testing is humility. When you are isolated, removed from the recognition and praise of others, you are forced to examine your motivations. Do you crave validation, status, or approval from others, or is your desire simply to serve God and fulfill His will? Isolation strips away the superficial aspects of life and exposes the true motives of your heart. Through this process, God teaches you that humility is not about self-deprecation, but about having a heart that seeks to serve rather than be served, to give rather than take. It is a time to humble yourself before God, acknowledging that all your strength, wisdom, and success come from Him and Him alone. Isolation also tests your ability to forgive and let go of offenses. In solitude, you have the space to reflect on past hurts, betrayals, or injustices. During this time, God reveals whether you are holding on to unforgiveness or bitterness. He gives you the chance to confront these emotions, not to relive the pain, but to release it and find healing. The process of forgiving others is often difficult, but it is necessary for the development of a pure heart. Through isolation, God teaches you to forgive as He has forgiven you, allowing your character to be refined in the areas of mercy and grace. The testing of character in isolation also involves confronting your fears and insecurities. When you are alone, you are forced to face the areas where you may feel inadequate, unworthy, or afraid. It is in these vulnerable moments that God draws near to you, offering comfort and strength to overcome these fears. As you rely on Him to heal your insecurities and fill you with His peace, your character is strengthened. You learn that your worth is not determined by your past mistakes or your perceived shortcomings, but by your identity in Christ. This understanding helps you walk in greater confidence, knowing that God has equipped you to face anything with His strength. The testing of character in isolation is a process of refinement. It is a time when God purges away the things that hinder your growth, whether they be wrong attitudes, unhealthy attachments, or unhealed wounds. The trials you face are not meant to defeat you, but to purify you, making you more like Christ in the process. Each test you face, whether it is a test of patience, integrity, humility, forgiveness, or courage, serves to shape you into a person who can handle the blessings and responsibilities that come with fulfilling God's purpose for your life. The character that is forged in the fire of isolation is the foundation for a life that is built on righteousness, strength, and unwavering faith in God's goodness. The timing of blessings is one of the most crucial aspects of God's plan for our lives. In our human perspective, we often desire blessings to come quickly in the way we imagine and according to our own timeline. However, God's timing is perfect, and it is during seasons of isolation that we learn to trust in His perfect schedule. Isolation serves as a space where God can prepare us for the blessings He has in store, ensuring that we are truly ready to receive and steward them in a way that aligns with His will. When you are in isolation, it can feel like nothing is happening, and this can be a difficult thing to endure. You may wonder why God is delaying the blessings you've been praying for, or why the things you've worked toward haven't materialized yet. But it is precisely in these moments that God is teaching you the importance of waiting, patience, and trust. He understands that your readiness for a blessing is not just about external circumstances, but about the internal transformation that must occur to handle the responsibility and impact of that blessing. It is through isolation that God allows you to grow, develop, and mature, so that when the time comes for the blessing, you can handle it wisely. One of the key lessons that isolation teaches is that blessings are not simply about the receiving of something material or external, but about becoming the person capable of managing those blessings. Blessings in God's timing are often delayed or withheld until we reach a certain level of maturity and understanding. The truth is that some blessings can be harmful if we are not spiritually, emotionally, and mentally prepared for them. If God were to release them too soon, we might squander them or be overwhelmed by the responsibility they bring. The isolation period becomes a crucial training ground where God strengthens your faith, refines your character, and equips you with the wisdom needed to steward the blessings that He will eventually release into your life. The timing of blessings also teaches us to trust in God's perfect will. When you are isolated, you often feel alone and uncertain about what lies ahead. It can be easy to become discouraged, but it is during these seasons that God is working behind the scenes. His timing is never wrong, and while it may seem like you are being passed over or forgotten, He is actually orchestrating everything to align with His greater plan for your life. He knows when the right time is for you to step into the next season of your purpose. His understanding of what is best for you is far deeper than your own, and His delays are always for a greater purpose. Another aspect of God's timing is the fact that He works through seasons. Just as nature follows its own rhythm with cycles of planting, growth, and harvest, God's timing unfolds in seasons. During the isolated periods of waiting, God may be working to prepare the external circumstances that need to align for your blessing. It's not just about personal readiness, it's also about God positioning the people, the opportunities, and the environment for the blessing to be received fully and effectively. We may not see all of this while we are waiting, but God's timing is always in motion, and He is aligning everything to bring His plan into fruition at the right moment. The timing of blessings reveals the depth of God's love and wisdom. When we receive blessings too early or too late, it can lead to confusion or disappointment. But when the blessing comes at the appointed time, everything falls into place. You realize that God's delays are not denials, but rather moments of divine preparation. He gives us what we need when we are ready to handle it, and sometimes that means waiting longer than we expect. In these waiting seasons, He is not withholding good from us. He is making sure we can handle the responsibility of the blessing, that we will use it for His glory, and that it will serve a greater purpose than just our own satisfaction. Isolation teaches you to rely on God's timing and not on your own agenda. It is easy to get caught up in the desire to control the outcomes of your life, but in isolation, you are forced to relinquish control. God's timing challenges our need for immediate gratification and forces us to trust that His plans for us are always better than anything we could create for ourselves. The process of waiting for blessings teaches you to trust not in your own understanding, but in God's wisdom, which sees the beginning from the end. By surrendering your desires to Him and trusting in His timing, you allow His plans to unfold at the right moment. The moment the blessing arrives, you will realize that it is worth the wait. The lessons learned in isolation, the growth, the maturity, the character development will make the blessing even more meaningful. The delay will no longer feel like a burden, but a beautiful preparation for the fulfillment of God's promises. What seemed like a season of waiting will become a testimony of God's faithfulness, and you will step into your blessing with the understanding that it was His perfect timing that made all the difference. The fulfillment of God's plan, the timing of the blessing, and the journey that led you there will align in such a way that you will be amazed at how carefully He orchestrates every detail of your life. The ultimate reward is the culmination of everything that God has been preparing in you during your season of isolation. While the journey through isolation may feel long and often painful, the reward that awaits you at the end is far greater than anything you could have imagined or pursued on your own. This reward is not simply a material possession or external recognition, but it is a deeper, more profound transformation that aligns you with God's divine purpose for your life. It is the moment when you realize that the trials, waiting, and refining were all part of God's plan to prepare you for something far more valuable and meaningful than what you initially thought. The ultimate reward is often a shift in how you see yourself and the world around you. After going through the process of isolation and being shaped by God, you emerge as a different person, stronger, wiser, and more attuned to the voice of God. The reward is the personal growth and maturity that come from being tested and refined in the fire. You realize that the true blessing is not just the external circumstances, but the internal transformation that equips you to live a life of purpose, faith, and influence. The reward is the development of a deep, abiding relationship with God, one that has been cultivated in the quiet moments of isolation, where you learn to trust Him fully, even when you couldn't see the path ahead. The ultimate reward also comes in the form of the fulfillment of God's promises for your life. The dreams, desires, and visions that God has placed within you are not forgotten or abandoned. Through the process of isolation, God has been preparing you, aligning you with His will, and positioning you to walk into these promises at the perfect time. The reward is not only seeing those promises fulfilled, but understanding how much they were worth the wait. When you step into the fullness of what God has for you, you experience the joy of knowing that everything you have endured has led to this moment of fulfillment and purpose. Another aspect of the ultimate reward is the impact you are now able to have on the lives of others. The isolation process doesn't just prepare you for personal success, but for the role you are meant to play in the lives of those around you. The growth and strength that you have developed in isolation enable you to be a beacon of hope, encouragement, and wisdom to others who may be facing their own seasons of waiting or hardship. Your testimony becomes a powerful tool for uplifting and inspiring others to trust in God's timing and purpose for their lives. The ultimate reward is not only about receiving, but about becoming a vessel through which God can bless others. This reward also includes the deep peace and contentment that comes from knowing that you are walking in alignment with God's will for your life. In isolation, you may have struggled with uncertainty or fear about what lies ahead, but the reward is the confidence that you are exactly where God wants you to be. It is the peace that comes from understanding that everything in your life, every season of waiting, every challenge, every moment of isolation has had a purpose. When the reward arrives, you recognize that it was not an accident or a coincidence, but a carefully orchestrated plan of God to bring you into the place of fulfillment. The ultimate reward also involves being entrusted with greater responsibility and opportunities. God doesn't bless us just for our own benefit. He blesses us so that we can be a blessing to others and fulfill His purposes on earth. After going through isolation, you are entrusted with the wisdom, strength, and humility needed to handle greater responsibilities. You may be given new opportunities, new roles, or new platforms to serve others and make an impact. These blessings, however, come with a deeper sense of accountability, as you now understand that your purpose is not just for personal gain, but for the glory of God and the good of those around you. The greatest reward is the realization that God's plan for you was always greater than anything you could have imagined. The blessings and rewards that come are not just for your benefit, but are part of a larger picture that God has been painting throughout your life. The ultimate reward is the experience of living in the fullness of God's plan, walking in His purpose and becoming the person He created you to be. When you look back at the season of isolation, you will see that it was not a period of punishment or abandonment, but a sacred time of preparation and refinement that led to something far greater than you could have achieved on your own. The ultimate reward is not just the fulfillment of dreams, but the deep understanding that God was with you through it all, shaping, guiding, and preparing you for the life He always intended for you to live. The journey of isolation is not one to be feared, but one to be embraced. For it is the very place where God refines us, strengthens us, and prepares us for the blessings He has in store. It is during these moments of solitude that we are shaped into the individuals we need to be, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us. The testing of character, the strengthening of faith, and the refining of purpose all lead to the ultimate reward, a life lived in alignment with God's perfect plan, filled with fulfillment, peace, and purpose. So when you find yourself in a season of waiting or isolation, do not despair. Know that it is not a time of abandonment, but a sacred process of preparation. Trust in God's perfect timing, for He is working in you and through you, molding you into the person He has always intended you to be. The blessings that are ahead of you are far greater than what you could ever imagine, and when the time is right, they will flow into your life in abundance. Embrace the isolation, for it is not the end, but the beginning of something magnificent. Through it, you will discover the depth of God's love, the strength of His purpose for you, and the greatness of the reward that comes when you are ready to walk boldly into the destiny He has ordained. Keep trusting, keep growing, and know that your time is coming. The best is yet to come.